My name is Karl-Erik Enquist. I work 50% here in the lab as an artistic leader, or the artistic leader. There I do teaching. I am part of certain cross-disciplinary projects. I am consulting on certain artistic matters. And I also work half-time on a place called Kulturverket. And Kulturverket has specialized in working with kind of like cultural pedagogical projects where basically the children's ideas, their visions and their thoughts placed in the center, and then with the help of our expertise and also external expertise are trying to realize. So many years ago we made a collaboration with the Home Lab where we made a blog opera, for example.
Sorry?
A blog opera where you blogged, and I think the actors were singing in real time. This was before my time.
All right.
We also made this summer, we made a football musical, which basically was a football match where like people were singing. And I've also been developing games based on the children's ideas, and that's what I've been doing. I'm also part of a bunch of different game developing projects here in the lab. My background is as an artist. I was originally a sculptor, working with very much sculpture. But during my education, I started working with robotics. I was looking conceptually into games, and also being very interested in virtual worlds. So what we're going to do today is we have a very basic introduction to game development, and we're going to, in groups, work with kind of like conceptualize a game according to a certain theme that I decide. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples, and then you will work with a couple of hours, and then we have a presentation. Basically, that's it. So, and many of the games I'm going to show, I think some of you are already familiar with, but I'm keeping on a quite like basic level, because this is a kind of mixed groups where people have very different backgrounds. So if you're already developing your own games, like have patience with me, understand that the other people are on a different level. And why I'm doing this, why I'm interested in game, I'm very much interested in games as artifacts, not games per se in itself, but I believe it's very interesting to have games as way of telling stories or creating discussions and so on, because games, they have like, they get the image, the moving image, you get the film, you get the text, you get the interaction, you have music, you have sound. It's a multimedia product basically, and it could be, you can press so much information into this, and therefore I think it's very strong but also very underestimated today, very underestimated medium. But for me, I can see that in the industry, like the individual independent developers, they are pressing the borders, the frontiers, what is happening, experimenting with the games. And I'm very much interested in what is happening when you take and use this medium and you tell very intense personal stories. If it could function on the same way as a very personal book or a movie or something like that, I believe it can. But there are a couple of very good examples I'm going to show you. But I'm going to start on showing off some projects I've been working with. And one of my, it's a very easy game. It's very simple made. And the graphics is like a kind of like homage to the 16-bit Nintendo graphics. It's 16-bit pixel-based graphics. But everything in the game, and this is like the end product. So basically you see it's the same image here. So I'm going to show you these. We, in Kulturverket, we're working in a big project called Fair City. And Fair City contains 9 themes, all of them working with the children's vision of how Umeå would be in the future. And this was the theme of water. And in water, we worked with 10-year-olds, about 60 10-year-olds. And we put them together in teams of 3. And before that, we had been discussing back and forth with them, and we offered them that okay, we can make a game in this kind of like pixel game-based graphics, and in a kind of like discussion with the different children, the different classes, we decided to make it. We're going to make an underwater game. There's going to be caves. There's going to be a submarine that explores the caves, and we put up certain criteria, like every team makes one cave, and every cave is like a problem you have to solve before you can progress to the next cave. And we use this collage as a way for them to work with it. First off, it's just basic graphical game design. This is different layers that we also copied in the games. And then, underneath, they also had the instructions. In what order you're going to solve the cave. And we also had let children present every cave in front of the class, and we filmed them at the same time, so we got their verbal information, their description. This is the way you solve it. But the way you solve it is, the problem is you enter this cave here. So this is a windmill because it's in the future, like a post-apocalyptic Umeå. So this is the windmill in Holmsund, Obla. So it's a big kind of wind power plant there, and it was like underwater, and there was a big moray eel blocking the exit. So the solution we had, like their original solution, was like big ass missile that blows it away, but we, in discussion with them, we decided, well, wouldn't it be better to have like a more sophisticated solution to that? Because every cave contained some kind of missiles or dynamite and so on. Like so. And the solution we found was you use a big mirror and you scare the moray with its own reflection. And we can set around a couple of these, so you can have them as inspiration points. And we tried in the game, and the only limitations were our own technical knowledge, but we tried to be so true as possible to the children and their original ideas. In this game, Water Crisis, it's free for everyone, so you can just download it on Kulturverket Umeås homepage. Ja, det har det ligger nog inne på oss. So, and this game is we made like multiple versions of it. So we made one for PC and one for Mac because I used Game Maker when I produced the game. I just imported the file to a PC computer, and you can just export it for a PC format. But if you have the time over and you want to check it out, it's just on Kulturverket's homepage, and it's completely free. Water Crisis, the water feed. So this is one game project. Yeah.
How many hours did you spend with the children?
Let's see here, how many hours? We spent about...
Or did you sort of visit and come back?
We visited them. So we spent about 12 to 14 hours with the children. And then we had about 3-4 months of pure development time, where we were just interpreting their collages and doing the pixel graphics.
So how much time did they spend on drawing?
Well, the 14 hours were...
14?
The 14 hours where we were visiting them, but they were working with the caves also in lesson time, because we gave instructions to the teachers that, like, let them work with and incorporate the knowledge you got, because they visit also the Umeå water recycling plant. And they got it. That's what it did before. First of all, everything. And so they tried to apply that knowledge from the water recycling theme to this cave. But 14 hours we were spending with the kids, but I would say...
was that like periods of how many hours? 2 hours?
3 hours each. 3 hours each.
Okay.
And then, so I would say at least a double amount that the children put down in the work. Because they were working between these kind of visits.
Did they like the...
Oh, yes. I mean, it's such a nice feeling when they You know, when they're confronted, this is my game. I made this. I made a original idea, and it's exactly that solution. On that. So, and the reason why I'm showing this is because, of course, there's different steps of game development. Like if you're here today and you're not like familiar with working with games, this is a perfect way of starting investigating how games work.
And what tool did you say that you used?
What program?
Yeah.
Game Maker.
Game Maker.
Yeah. I'm going to move on to a project I'm working with now. And what do you think this is?
Code.
You know. What? No, if you know it, you're not supposed to.
Anyway, it's a code.
What do you think it is? It's a symbol of something I think is important for me, which I think is fun. Lives? Lives. Now, the idea of the entire thing is that it's open for interpretation. I'm going to tell you in some time what it is. But basically, what we work with children is that they individually were making drawings of like what is important for them, like what is really important for them. Someone like, oh, Christmas is important for me because I had my birthday just before Christmas, so I really love Christmas. And for some, it was like practicing parkour. For some, it was spending time with animals. So they made these kind of drawings, and then we said, now you're gonna. Based on, we had like a presentation where we showed how letters and signs were like developing through time and history, and we showed them like Chinese signs and how they looked in the beginning, like the sign for a mountain in like a couple of thousand years. It looked exactly like a mountain, but it was like a more simplified version of Mandarin today. So we're saying like, okay, if you have a symbol that looks like a mountain, or you have a symbol that looks like a car, how could you simplify it? How can you make it into a symbol, almost like a new alphabet? So, and based on that, they made like their own personal symbols. And we were working with two classes, one here in Röbäck and another in Lövånger, which is close to Skellefteå. So in all, we got 40 symbols. And these symbols, the simplified symbols, are going to turn out into these cards. They will laser cut. And this is a game you use because the entire theme of the project is reading comprehension. Basically just comprehension, how you interpret things. So they're going to use this game, which is a mix between two classes, and these classes have never met each other, so they don't know what the symbols is. And even between the members of the class, you don't know what the symbol is. This is, by the way, a game controller.
A game what?
A game controller.
All right.
But it could be two people going to the church. And with the help of these games, they're going to work in groups. With the help of these cards, they're going to work in groups, like 5 students each group. Have 5 cards, and place it, and then you're going to create a story based on these 5 symbols. And those stories we're going to use as a base for continuing building another game, like a real board
But they
game.
don't know the symbols. They don't know the symbols. They just interpret.
They
something.
know them individually. So
Alright.
they know like this is my symbol, of course.
Okay.
So, but because
They
they worked with them themselves, and maybe they've seen their classmates, but
Okay.
they don't know the other class
Alright.
symbols. So that's going to be a complete surprise for them.
So they have to interpret whatever
Exactly.
they think.
Exactly. And then you're going to create these stories, and these stories will be a base for a big board game where we think it's going to be like 8 levels, because it will be 8 groups overall. So,
Cool, and that's ongoing, this project.
this is ongoing, this project. So I can send it around now. I think it's really nice just to have a tactile feeling. So.
And what kind of groups were this? You say
These
Röbäck
are
and,
9-year-olds.
Okay, so you work with the schools then?
Yes, we work with the schools. So we contact the schools and say, are they interested in participate in the project? And then we go out and start working with this. Because now we made the computer game, but we're going to include the children even more, and that's the reason we went to the board game structures. Anyway, I think we're going to...
We're not going to see an example of the game.
You can be allowed to play the game here, if you like, because I don't have it here on this computer. So, But I think we're going to go further on. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of games where I think they've been working really interestingly with kind of very hard questions. And this is something I'm really interested in. I'm really interested in something called autobiographical games. It's like use games in a gaming platform as a medium of telling your own personal stories. And there are some really good examples there. I'm also going to show you a board game that works with some really hard questions. So this is some images from a game called Dysphoria from 2012. Who are familiar with this game? You are, of course. Okay, this Dysphoria is made by Anna Entropy. And it's basically, the graphics is super simple. It's a flash-based game, it's completely free, you can find it online. And it's about her process going through hormone replacement therapy. And it's intensely personal. We're talking about how the hormones affect her, how people meet her, how people interpret her actions and so on, how the doctor talked to her and everything. And this is like basically the 4 steps she's going through. First, like working with what is gender for me as a trans person, and then medical bullshit, what the doctors think about her, and the kind of like exams and tests she has to go through. Are you physically insane and so doing this? This is something it takes a very short time to play through. I strongly recommend it. And it's very strong. Very strong.
Signed copies of her book will be lottery out. What is it called? You have a chance to win them if you participate in the hack.
Yeah.
Signed copies of her book, Rise of the Video Games.
Yes, which is a really good book. It's written like a manifest, a strong critique of the established gaming industry.
I recognize the name of the creator of Anna.
Yeah.
I think I've read some blog or something before.
Yeah.
Can this game be found somewhere online?
Yeah, you just Google it. Yeah. So it's a flash-based game, so it's online.
And it's on the platform, but it's like it's on some special website. It's not like
Yeah, I think it's Newsground or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, Newsground.
Okay, let's move on. This game here, That Dragon Cancer. This is still in development by Ryan Green. And it's a biographical game. And Green's son, and this is in development, I'm telling you, was diagnosed with cancer of the age of 1, I think. And in the last 3 years, the kid has been going through a bunch of different kind of therapies. He had like 7 different tumors, and he'd been like treated by radiation, surgery, or chemotherapy. And this therapy is not rarely used on children. And but Joel, he has struggled to survive. The kid is still alive, and that's why Green chose to make this game, because this is about Ryan Green's experience of having a very sick child, and you are playing the father and being like confronted with different situations, being confronted with pain, being confronted with existential perspectives, and trying to be there for your kid. It's a very strong story, and I would love to see it. Love to see the finished product. And I'm going to show an example of a board game. Was anyone reading the thing you sent out, the blog?
I don't know if you're familiar with, but edubaychallenge.org is the website for Edubay Challenge, and there is a blog, and we keep posting things there. We keep inviting guest bloggers to write. So there is a blog post today in Swedish. Unfortunately, but there are links to the TED Talk of Brandon Romero, who is the maker of this game.
Mm. Yep, that's true. She's been working with digital games before, but she went over for analog games because she found there was a much better platform for kind of working with really hard questions. And Train is a game where you try to fit as many people as possible in train wagons and move them along. And of course, you're confronted with the situation. For some people, this is quite obvious, but for some people, it weren't. This is a one-of-a-kind game, so it's more like an installation she made. And it's a, as some of you noticed, it's a representation of the Holocaust. Where she's been trying to make a game that it could be used in a more educational way of understanding what the Holocaust is and how it works structurally. But she uses this a lot, that she puts the player in a role as the perpetrator. She made another game called The New World, which is about slavery, where you basically have these units, in, for example, Africa, which you have to break up and send over seas and so on. But after a while, you understand that these units are like family members. So you're breaking up the family members. You're placing them in slavery. You're doing it as a player. So. And for her, it's very important. Like, you cannot win the game, or maybe you win the game by stop playing it. So like, you take a step back and say, I don't want to play this game because now I understand it.
What do you mean by the game as an installation? Is that played only once by one person?
No. It's just made in one copy.
Okay.
So you can only play it. I think it's in, I can't remember, but it's been moved around to different museums in the States.
Okay.
And I think that's something similar she also did with the other games, The New World. She's working with a new game now that is based on the Trial of Tears, which were 50,000 Native Americans lost their lives, where they moved them from one reservation to another. So she's trying to make like a game representation of that event. And I don't know if it would be working to put these games in a production sense, but as an installation, like going to a museum and playing it just as a visitor, has been quite successful. We're going to go back into the digital world. This is a game by So Quinn. She made a game called Depression Quest in 2013. And it's made by a program called Twine, so it's completely text-based. I don't know if some of you are familiar with it. When I was a little boy, during the 80s, there was this kind of adventure novels where you were playing some kind of warrior and came to the end of the page, and you were like, if you want to go into the cave, go to page 84. If you want to stand outside, go to page 23. And she's working with that kind of system here, because basically here's like a situation. This is your day or something happens basically, and then you have different alternatives here. But the more you go into the depression, the more alternatives are like crossed off the list. So you get more and more trapped in the situation. So and this is. I have a friend who's severely depressed, and she's been saying that this is it's maybe not perfect representation, but it's quite spot on. How she
There's
feels.
actually 4 games about depression.
Yeah.
Because there's more there are more visual ones.
They're
It's very surprising. And now I found an article at Kotaku.
Yeah.
And about 4 games about depression. Like this was one of them, but there are more I haven't tried yet.
okay.
But this is interesting because like who would have thought that there are games about depression?
Mm.
But I kind of played this one through, even though I wouldn't really call it a game, and eventually I was really disappointed.
You were disappointed.
Yes, because there's like I think the description says that this game doesn't have an end, like depression doesn't have an end.
Mm.
But there's absolutely no resolution at the end. Like
No.
absolutely nothing happened.
Mm.
So I was kind of expecting some conclusions.
That's interesting.
Fireworks.
Yeah.
You were expecting some kind of progression because it was a game, because that's what you consider a game component, like progression.
Yeah, but it could have been a movie. It could have been whatever.
Yeah.
There was just absolutely
Oh.
like nothing.
It's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, it's like in the middle it was interesting, but then it went downward again. I know it's my impression, and the amount of text was sometimes overwhelming.
It could be a point of the game also. The ending being a bit anticlimactic. There's no fireworks in the end.
No.
Though that was the point, but
Yeah.
but still, I think it was kind of anticlimactic in a different way.
Yeah, the engaging aspect is, I think,
Exactly.
profound. But sometimes games can just focus on one thought and one idea, and once you get the idea, you're finished with the game. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna show one more example. This is a screen cap for my game called Actual Sunlight by Will O'Neill. And it's also about love, depression, and corporations, because he has office work, but it's also a game about his suicide thoughts. So it's like a very traditional built, like a 16-bit top-down role-playing game about his everyday life and how he struggles with his depression, his suicide thoughts, and he's going his routines every day. You play the role of Evan Winter, but it's an autobiographical game. Also.
There's one more game I was reading about depression actually. It's called The Cat Lady.
Oh yeah,
And
I just read about that.
The game is, I don't know, I started playing it, but I got stuck after 1 hour because it's kind of counterintuitive. But generally, like the narration, there is a voice that the woman narrates it, but like she's really depressed. Like everything she says, like there's really the feelings of the person being truly depressed, and also what she says, like that she actually wants to commit suicide. I'm not sure if she does because it's like there's this constant like uncertainty about what's going on really, and there are some things which are totally don't make sense because they're like I think in her head, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting concept. The game looks kind of terrible. it's really difficult to like keep focus on it because it just doesn't really work that well.
No, I haven't tried. I just read about it recently.
Probably makes you more depressed.
It makes me more depressed because I can't figure out how to progress because and there's like since it's such a niche game, there's no like walkthroughs or whatever. So it's like I tried all the options that I could think of, and so I cannot go through the door. I cannot get out of the mental hospital, and I'm stuck in chapter 1 out of 7. So.
Okay, like that could be the point to it, perhaps.
No.
You don't think so?
It's the entire game, so it's like you sell it like it has 7 chapters, but there is only 1.
It could be, it would be
I
brilliant.
think I played a game like
Amusing.
that once,
Yeah.
and in the beginning there was a sign saying, "This game can turn the most calm person crazy" or something. And it was you know this struts,
Ostrich?
ostrich, yeah, and this fast ostrich and that little dog or and the pew pew, you know, this
Coyote?
carrot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you know, these children's figures. And
You always get something from Acme or instead of
beep, beep, and then you run.
Roadrunner
Yeah,
and
And then
Toyota
you put the
Roadrunner.
ball for what it was, and you were supposed to go and catch the sheep and try to save them. But you could actually not finish this game. I think this was the end, why they had that sign in the beginning. That the idea for you to try until you
Fair.
fail.
Yeah.
And I stayed like 2 days moving those sheep. And yeah, maybe that's the fun with some games. That actually, they make fun of us trying to.
Okay. Let's leave the examples. I'm gonna present you. This is a very traditional kind of definition of games. This is Wolfgang Kramer. made this kind of definition. Wolfgang Kamo is one of the most successful board game developers of today.
Sandström.
Sorry?
Sandström.
Yeah, he is. He's very German.
That was a good shot back.
So you get what he defines like this is the basic criteria, but then there is like criteria like he believes that every game has rules. So that he makes the kind of this separation because this is something very. I don't really know why he makes that separation, but this is more general traits, and this is like specifically if you go into when the more advanced they are, the more rules they have. So basically, it's a common experience. It's something you share with people. So. And every kind of player starts on a kind of equal level, because if it's not balanced, one player like all the time wins. That's not really interesting to play it. You have a certain freedom within the board game, or the digital game to be. So, and it's an activity, and it's immersive. And immersive is something that's really important to take hold of. Then, of course, there are rules. There is a goal. There is an element of chance. If there is too much chance, then it's no point to playing the game, basically, because it's total random wins. If there's no chance, then you get that it's not equal. And he sees it also like it has to be a competition. But I don't agree with it. That it doesn't have to be a competition between players. So I played a lot of games that are just about developing a game, creating a dialogue, and so on. Who wins there? So, but of course, it could be a competition with the game system. Like there's this Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, got pandemic games, board games, where you work together as players, kind of like stopping a threat. In pandemic, stopping an epidemic in the world, you have to work together to do it. Then you like compete against the game. But I want to show you this because this is a very traditional, strict definition. But this is a game, so and this is something I also challenge you to kind of like break against, to work. What?
I just want to say I don't take those points for granted at all.
Those?
Yeah.
You don't?
No.
You don't? Can you explain further? What do you mean? So,
why is it a common experience? Why,
I mean, it's something. I believe what he thinks is if we go here and we sit around the table and share, we have a similar experience of playing the game.
Yeah, but that's it.
Yeah.
For me, if you state it's a common experience,
Yeah.
that means for me that you would have automatically from beginning the same common understanding of it.
Mm.
And if you would be at the end of the game, but not in the beginning.
Oh, okay. You mean like if I really understand the game, I have a higher chance of winning it? Or?
No, and then you are on the personal level again. I'm already at the common thing.
Mm. Okay.
And there's a whole process in between, and the process could be the game.
Mm. Absolutely. So,
But
but this is his criteria.
Yeah, but that's what I say, and
Yeah.
therefore I don't take it for granted, and that was
Yeah.
one example why I don't take it for
Can
granted.
you maybe give some example of what he means? Because quality and freedom are very like big words to me.
Yeah.
And what does he mean by?
Well, I believe that his equal is like I said. Everyone. You try to make a balanced game. If it's a competition between players, you, in some way, try to create an equal structure. So everyone, if they play the character in the right way, has a certain chance of winning.
To
I think that's what he means.
to equal out some factors.
Yeah, exactly. If you have like a character who's really flexible, dexterous, but he's weak. Then you have someone who's strong, but he's not flexible, and so on. So there are like benefits and how do you say it? Benefits and
Pros and cons.
Disadvantages.
disadvantages also. Same time, depending on so. I think that's what he needs. So that they're like, if you, he makes a lot of war games. War. So I think like if you have like a game where there are like a couple of armies fighting each other, like there's certain armies that maybe have developed artillery, others maybe have really developed scouts. I think that's the way he's thinking.
It's like a game of chess,
Yeah, exactly.
typically.
So is common experience, is that kind of like the same references, same a common ground to understand the place of the game or the environment of the game?
It will it depends, because then we have a discussion also about if a Western perspective of playing a certain game, or an Eastern perspective, and so on. It's not that common, I would think. So, I mean, it's more common is like you sit around a table and you share this experience.
Oh, okay.
So that's, I think, what he means with common.
Oh, okay. To share an experience with other people.
Yeah, exactly. But let's leave this and go to your assignment. Now this is 2 hours, well, give or take. And you're going to work with a concept. So there's no need for programming, it's just concept. You got paper, pens, you got post-its, you got whiteboards here that you can use. You can use the other side of that whiteboard if you want to see it. You can use this entire environment if you like. And the clients that you're working with, the main players, they're children in the age of 8 to 10. I think this is a really good group to work with because they are mature enough to understand certain questions and problems, but they are still, they are not really bound by such limitations that we put ourselves as adults. They have a certain imagination that is very, very free. And there is a point A and a point B. The game happens in between. How does the players progress from one point to another? How are conflicts happening? If there are conflicts. Are there conflicts in the game?
What do you mean by conflicts?
Basically,
Så du ska döda person B?
yeah.
So you don't mean, for example, conflict of interest? Or
Could be a conflict of interest. Could be.
Battle of resources?
Conflict of
Kill the other guy before the other guy kills you.
Or an obstacle could be a conflict as well.
Obstacle is a conflict.
Kill.
Definitely.
Grabs the
I
weapon.
studied
But you
peace and
see,
conflict.
just what we're discussing now,
Mhm.
I'm just following this from
Yeah.
my perspective, is two totally different points of views on that, with totally different meaning where you're working on.
But subjects and objects within the game, sometimes they switch places. What do you mean by that?
I mean, usually when you have a game, you have, for example, if you play Pandemic, you have a certain amount of players. This is the subjects. This is the one you controls. Then you have objects. This is the virus. They're taking over the world. This creates a kind of like interesting hierarchy, I would think. And what I'm interested in is it possible to create a game where you switch places during the game session with this?
Stop playing as the virus instead of the doctor.
Yeah, exactly. And then you switch. But it could also be, if this is a game about relationships, and you talk about a certain perspective here, and then you have another perspective which is kind of like an object. It's just something that is...
There is a Swedish game like that.
Is there?
Tjuven Police. A board game.
Ah, that's a good one.
You know that
Thief and
one?
Police.
How Tjuven or police?
Yeah, you can be a thief or you can be the police. And just playing the same board. Did you play this game?
Is it like what you played when you were young? It's
Yeah,
running
you
around
rob
the house
banks.
screaming at each other, bang, bang.
Here are
It's a board game,
Oh,
like
okay.
Monopoly, but
Herregud.
I thought
You know,
about the
you can-
play.
Ja, vad bra.
Oh,
Du har skrivit
Just switch roles during the day or
somewhere.
well,
Oh, there they are. That's it.
okay.
You don't have to write this down because there are handouts
I
on
don't
the
know,
table.
but you could probably do that.
Yeah. But because I'm interested to see what happens. Because usually you have like, oh, you have the same player all the time. And then you fight against, handle conflicts against certain objects. So they're like enemies, or they're like perpetrators, or there is something. Because what I'm interested in is what happens
But
in a more discussion-based game, like where you see both perspectives.
this is actually super interesting. Like I did once conflict analysis about the Israel and Palestine conflict, and so the teacher gave us this: try to put yourself in the shoes of both sides.
Mm.
And actually, this could be done in a game, telling the sides of two sides in the actual conflict. With very, you have played them.
A game where you played as a journalist investigating conflict on the West Bank. You have to talk to people on both sides and
Very interesting way.
could get to some sticky situations.
I'll bring this with me.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was called.
Jag vet inte om du vill berätta sen vad du gör med barnen i skolan.
Jo, visst.
Att jag
Where were we? I'm just going to give an example of such a game I played. Excuse me. When I was much younger, I played something called role-playing games. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but you play a certain character and you have like a dungeon master and so on. And we did a lot of experiments with this. So we played a campaign where we started in Warsaw as Jewish people living in the ghetto, and playing through the entire German occupation and what happened to us. And then in the end, when our characters had subdued the Nazis, we switched places and we played SS officers, but from their perspective. So, and this was an experience. It was I was around 20 when we tried this. So, this is a role-playing game, so it's much more advanced. It's much more based on acting and so on, but it's that could be also a very interesting situation. And of course there are handouts there, don't forget those. And you could buy either digital or analog, so you can create a concept and you can say, well, this is a digital game, this is an analog game, but justify it, please.
Analog, you mean a board game?
A board game, exactly. And the general meaning of what you want to mediate is more important than functioning game mechanics and other specific details. Like work with the what do you want to tell? What kind of subjects are you going to work with? It's not if it works or not, like on a mechanical level, it's not important. It's like try to focus on filling it with basically like with a soul. That is the main point. Like so, what is the internal narrative of the game? What is the subject working with? What is the problems and so on? What is on an emotional level? And now the theme is an educational game. Remember, it's 8 to 10-year-olds about power and or relationships. So including in this power is also gender, it's class, it's ethnicity, and so on. But it's up to you to decide, is it taking place here in a Western context? Or is it in India? Is this somewhere else? The States? So, what kind of cultural context do these children belong to? That's up to you to decide. And but it's about talking about relationship. It's about talking about gender. It's talking about what is power. But it could also be talking about the structure of relationships. Like how do you talk to a 10-year-old or 8-year-old about how a relationship works? That there are separations, that there are problems, and that you have to, in a heterosexual couple, you have to, like from a switch perspective, share the burden, or what do you call it? And kind of like confront the traditional gender role. So, this is written on the handout, of course. We will start the presentations at 20:30 and try to end them around 9. But now we just went over time also. So we try to aim at 20:30 here, but let's improvise.